Hi, my name's Louise Larson. This is my December webinar for 2024. I run August Consulting and I help families on the road to college admissions. And it is Thanksgiving weekend, and I am in snow country. I actually skied a little bit this morning, so I wanted to get this out because December 1st is tomorrow, and I've got a lot going on, a lot of things on the calendar coming up, so I wanted to make sure I got this done before I headed home for Thanksgiving. So um, I'm going to talk about news and notes, and then I thought this month I would talk about um 12 things I wish families knew. Kind of the 12 days of Christmas, but 12 things I wish families knew about college admissions. So news and notes to kick it off. The first thing, my website is being updated. So if you look at this between, say, November 30th and December 1st, 2nd or so, and you go to get to my website, you might not be able to. It's under construction, but it should be updated and hopefully a little more useful for families. So there's that. And the other thing that I managed to do, I did not understand. I was on YouTube with my little YouTube channel, and I was like, nobody can leave comments. It says comments unavailable. And then I started to kind of dig through this and figure out why people couldn't leave comments. And it was because I had put my webinars as appropriate for children, like not adults only. And I thought if I put my webinars as adults only, it was like something else. So I thought putting it for children meant made it more accessible, and actually it didn't. It made it less accessible. So I got all that updated. So if you want to leave a comment or a question in YouTube, you can. Um, Suitable for children does not mean what we think it means. So uh, you can leave a comment there now. So I'll start this month with talk about the FAFSA. The FAFSA was scheduled to open up December 1st. They actually got it going about a week early. And I had a parent email me saying, I can't believe that this is right. I got it done so quickly and so easily. I don't believe I actually did it. So I was fielding texts and emails like that. And Ron Lieber of the New York Times put out an article. I believe I posted it on my social media on Facebook, that he also had a pretty easy time with it. So the FAFSA is hopefully going to be a far better process than it was last year. Fingers crossed. Now, the House, there was a headline, the House unanimously passes a bill to standardize the FAFSA form opening date. And this really just made me pause. It says they're going to enshrine October 1st as the deadline that the FAFSA has to open on October 1st. It's going to be enshrined. And I really, if you understand how the financial aid formulas work and what they expect out of a family's income and savings and home equity and all of that. I mean, the FAFSA doesn't use home equity. I misspeak. I'm thinking of the profile. But these formulas are not particularly friendly. And I was like, how about if you enshrine a formula that people could actually afford? There's an idea, because it doesn't matter if it opens October 1st or January 1st if you really can't pay what the formulas calculate you to be able to pay. So I was kind of like, here's an idea, enshrine a formula that would actually work for families. Um, in that same vein of financial aid, this is worth talking about. The University of Pennsylvania has put out a giant press release in the past week or so about their rebooting their financial aid. And they are putting in a no loans policy, so they will not ask their students to borrow money. Um, what did I put here? I think they went from under $200,000 in income to under $145,000 in income, um, will be free tuition. Now, it's important to note free tuition does not include room and board. So they won't charge you tuition, but they will expect you to be paying towards room and board potentially. It's a $6 million effort. And um, The one thing that is a big, big change, and the reason that I thought to mention this is they are no longer including home equity in the equation. Now, this is a big, big deal because there are many families, if you own real estate that you have bought more than, it doesn't even matter when you bought it. Many middle-class families can have very significant home equity that colleges see as available to pay for college. So they see 5% of your home equity is available every year for college. So if you have two children and they're going to go to college over 6 years, that's 30% of your home equity is seen as available to pay for college over those 6 years. That can really be not be that can become an unviable option for families. You could have a pretty middle class family with $500,000 in home equity that's going to be $25,000 a year, and that can really flip just tip the scales towards we can't afford this. So when University of Pennsylvania comes to the table and says we aren't going to consider home equity anymore, and the home equity is calculated on the FAFSA on the CSS profile, there's a handful of other colleges that don't look at home equity, and some schools cap home equity at, say, 2 times income. So if you make $150,000 a year, they'll only use $300,000 of your home equity is available, even if you have more. But Penn changing this home equity policy could be a domino where other schools do it too, and that would be for the better, because in this real estate environment, I feel so many people could have an amount of home equity that really is unaffordable for them to access or tap or use, and makes a school unaffordable. So good news from Penn, and hopefully other schools will follow suit. As soon as my website gets back up, I'm going to post a piece on receiving decisions. It's December 1st tomorrow, and I usually post my December stress antidote, but I sent it out to my seniors early because last week Villanova ED1 and Loyola Marymount out in California, they released their ED decisions. So the decisions are coming a little earlier this year, and tomorrow's December 1st, and it's a really good time to pause and talk about how, if you have a senior, are decisions going to be collected? If you receive an answer at school, are you going to get it? I heard a kid one time in the past year or two, the decision was due like on Friday night of their play, and the play was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they had some big ED decision, and they made a conscious decision that they would not get their decision until after they had finished their play. So that type of thing where how is the decision going to be collected? What are the steps if the decision is what you wanted? What are the steps if the decision is disappointing? How are you going to self-soothe or share that information? How publicly you're going to share it? So just to have a conversation about what's plan A if we get the news we want, what's plan B if the news isn't what we hoped for, and have a concrete plan. I was, I was listening to information about Duke University, and Duke University has a 98% sophomore retention rate. Now that is really amazing, because in any freshman class, there's going to be a student who perhaps has a health issue or a family issue, emergency of some sort, or something comes up. Maybe even they realize that they wanted to study something else that the school doesn't offer. There's going to be an amount of freshmen that have to take a pause for one reason or another. And Duke University has a 98% sophomore retention rate, which is amazing. But I was perhaps even more amazed to hear that Ohio State University, which is a giant flagship, has a 94% sophomore retention rate. So the type of student that Duke is going to bring in is going to be prepared, engaged by the selectivity of the school. Ohio State brings in a much broader range of students, but obviously does some really great work in getting them acclimated, settled, and engaged in their community so that they come back for their sophomore year. I wanted to apologize because I was listening to my enrollment management explanation from last month, and my explanation was sort of over the top. Enrollment management is a lot to figure out. but even listening, I was trying to bring it to like a more manageable level, and I'm not sure if I did that. It's a complicated thing, and I was trying to simplify it, and I don't know if I did. I heard a new type, not a new, but an SAT policy. Some schools are test optional, some schools are test free. They won't consider your test scores. Um, some schools are test, they call themselves literally test preferred. Um, and there's other schools that just say we expect test scores unless you have extenuating circumstances. Extenuating circumstances would be like, you live in the bush in Alaska, or there's a really pressing reason that you could not test. Um, but I liked this policy, the do no harm policy. And I think it might have been from Connecticut College. I forget whose policy this was. The do no harm. So you send your best scores and they will only count them if they help you. They will not count them if they don't help you. So I thought that was nice. And in this shifting testing environment, you don't have to wonder, do I send the scores? Do I not send the scores? So I wish more schools would do a do no harm test policy. The ACT update, they are coming out with online testing. It's going to be 70 minutes shorter. It's going to be online this spring as well as available on paper. They're allowing more time per question, and of course, science will be optional. The big question coming as this begins to come to fruition is, will schools take the test optional, the science optional ACT, or are they going to expect students to have that? So that'll be the next testing question of the many different testing questions is, if I do the ACT, does the school mandate having the science? The University of Virginia, I loved what the dean of admissions said there. They get 60,000 applications. And I like this, and I'm going to talk about this in my 12 things I wish families knew. She said, you tend to be pretty laid back about the style and the format of student application essays. You're going to get a lot of variety. So her point was, when you have 60,000 applications, you're pretty laid back about style, the format. If there's a typo, you're going to get a lot of variety, and they're used to that. So I thought that was nice, because people can get very down into like the exact essay and what it needs to be. And that just isn't, there's so many ways to do it. And, when you get 60,000 applications, you're going to see a lot of those different ways. The other thing, college football this fall has been very interesting, a lot of ups and downs. And I find myself always rooting for the less selective school in the lineup. So if it's, Michigan against, whoever they're playing in that, I always find myself rooting for the school with the less selective, the less selective school. I want that school to do well. So, and then the other thing is, a couple winters ago in December, I put out like a book list of like college admissions books that could be gifts for people in this journey to college admissions. And I think I'm going to give that a little reboot and redo that later this month, because there's some new books out, and kind of maybe a little bit of the best of, and what I would still recommend. And then there's certainly been some new books that have come out. So that's it for news and notes, what I have right now. We're definitely on the cusp of the big early decision results coming out in the next couple of weeks. So that should be exciting. And if you know a senior or have a senior, the pace and the energy around this starts to pick up a little bit. So this month, what I want to focus on is 12 things I wish families knew about this process. And the number one is the I've never heard of it syndrome. And I think it's important, if you have a senior coming to not a senior, but a high school student coming to this process, that you really keep an open mind, because there's so many schools that maybe don't have a high national profile or recognition, that are such hidden gems. And it might be easy to say, I've never heard of that school, so I don't want to look at it. But certainly doing some research online before you eliminate it would be smart. There are many, many schools that are very focused on educating their students and creating a great community for them that are not focused on creating a national profile. And so I think that I've never heard of it, is if you find yourself saying that, well, I've never heard of that, perhaps pause and suspend disbelief and do a little have your student do some research, you do some research. I've had so many people say to me, oh, wow, I didn't know this school had, a free 5th year's master's program or something to that effect. So try to strike, I've never heard of it from your vocabulary. Number 2, I wish families did not rely on decades old information. There are schools that have changed so dramatically in the past 25 to 30 years that I think that people say, oh, that wasn't a good school when I was applying. And, you could look at Northeastern University is just, the poster child for that. I mean, that was a commuter school surrounded by like parking lots with potholes, and now it's got a single-digit admit rate. So your school, sometimes I'll have a parent that went to like Fairfield and they'll be like, not Sacred Heart. And I'm like, well, Sacred Heart is 25 years later, a different place. Maybe you should take a look. So it's easy to kind of fall back onto old information, or you had a cousin that went there 20 years ago and they didn't like it. So looking at what is, not what was. I wish number 3 would be that you really see application pools as oceans, not looking at your child's high school pool and say, my kid's one of the top kids in their high school. I'm sure they are. But these application pools are more like oceans. And if your child left their high school or their region or their county, would they still be one of the top? And maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. But to understand how big these application pools are and how that a strong student can just be kind of like what they call like, standard strong. I think that the other thing, number 4, that I wish families knew was that test optional, you really have to be careful with test optional in terms of how you think of it. Test optional can mean a lot of things in a lot of places. Schools that have been doing it for a long time, and I believe the first was Bowdoin, is either Bowdoin or Bates, in 1969, whereas there were schools that were doing it well before the pandemic. There are schools that started doing it during the pandemic. There are schools that started doing it during the pandemic that have stayed permanently test optional. There are schools that adopted test optional in the pandemic that have gone back to requiring testing. So when you see a test optional school, it's just important to look. If they were doing this before the pandemic, great. If they were doing it because of the pandemic, you want to dig a little deeper. And there was some school they I think it was like 65% of their freshman class, 65% of their applicants sent in their application test optional, but the class breakdown of who they admitted and who came was like 50-50, which means kind of says to me, okay, maybe they favor people with test scores. I don't know. But it's important to do a good look at the actual school, because what test optional is for some schools is really the opportunity to cherry pick students that they want that don't have the test scores that they need. So that could be a school looking to fill institutional priorities around demographics or majors or test scores or full pay or Pell Grant, whatever their priority is that year. Test optional allows them to pull kids in that they don't have to, that they don't care that they don't have the test score. But for the average kid, they might care about the test score. So it can be cherry picking, and you really have to look a little closer. What were they doing before the pandemic? What have they been doing since? And do they share any statistics with you? Number 5 is there is no college tuition tooth fairy coming. And every college that you go to an information session or a tour will say, we are committed to affordability. But what does that mean exactly? And it's so important to know how colleges are going to evaluate your ability to pay, your family. What is, how many people are in your family? What kind of income is there? What kind of savings outside of retirement is there? What kind of home equity is there? Knowing exactly how colleges will evaluate you on the FAFSA, on the College Scholarship Service profile, really doing a deep dive into all of this, using enterprise calculators, just really doing your work, your homework, and being very upfront and clear with your student well as you begin this, to say this is where we think is an affordable point for us. This is what colleges might give us. This is what debt might look like. They're hard conversations to have, and I love the line from Ron Lieber's book, Paying for College, or I forget what the exact name of this book is, but and he says, don't be too hard on yourself. You have probably done the best that you could with this. So to have that open conversation, because when you go to the info sessions, you might feel like, okay, this is all going to be okay. But you really need to you might be surprised at how much a college thinks that you can pay. And it's just important to have it all out on the table as a family so that your student knows what it looks like. In that same vein, number 6, in that same vein, hold on. I would take a long look, wanting to know exactly how potential colleges on your students list handle housing. Housing has become a contact sport from Miami to California to Boulder and Salt Lake City to, Burlington, Vermont. Good luck. That's a tough place to get housing. And ironically, UVM used to always insist that you had to live on campus for 2 years, but they had such an over enrollment that they reduced. They said, okay, they sort of let sophomores go off campus, which made the already tight housing market even tighter. So they're tight on their dorms. The town's tight on housing. So housing is a big thing, because in the same vein of cost, you might be shocked to see what some of these places will charge for rent. So if they don't guarantee housing for your student, what does off-campus housing look like? Because if you look at a dorm, say a dorm is $10,000 a year, you are going to be signing a lease for 12 months. And what is that going to look like? And I've heard you could pay $1,500 a month, no questions asked, at places like Boulder. So that's actually $18,000 a year for 12 months for your student share. So knowing that, having a handle on what is going to happen with housing and what do those costs look like would be a pragmatic thing to do. Number 7, control what you can control. There's a lot of things here that don't make sense. And you can control what you can control as a parent. Your student can control what they can control as a student. Once the application goes out, there's not so much you can do. So figuring out what is in your domain to get done to keep this hopefully manageable, and what is not, and let go of what you can't do, and try and put your best foot forward. The student on their work and the parent on their work, whatever that might be. Number 8, do not. I wish families knew that they should not adultify their students' writing. And this, I did not come up with that. That is from Lee Coffin, who is the director of admissions at Dartmouth. Do not adultify the writing. I have had students do writing, and the parents think, this is terrible. This is not good. And I work hand in hand with my most knowledgeable editor, who I won't go into her background, but she knows what's going on. And sometimes I'll go to her with an idea, like, here's where we're going. Do you think this is working? I'm not sure. And, she often says, when I'm not sure, she often 9 out of 10 times says, yeah, no, this is working. Once in a blue moon, she says, I think that, yeah, I maybe need to reboot this. But It is such a mistake to take the inquantifiable pieces of this that really shine through as the work of a late adult adjacent adolescent and try to smooth it over and make it better, because it loses something when you do that. And it's almost like taking a very young child's artwork and saying, oh no, let's fix this to make it a little better. When you think about that type of artwork that your very young child used to bring home that was just so adorable and so much theirs and kind of told their story. And I think that adultifying the writing is so tempting because you want your child to have the best outcome. And if the writing is better, maybe the outcome will be better. But what actually quantifies better writing in this is not what might, get your piece published in a magazine. That's not what we're looking for. We're really looking for children authentically telling their story. And when it gets adultified, you lose something. So, what a parent might think is good versus what is actually good doesn't always line up. Number 9, I love this line. An authentic college search leads to an authentic application, and you cannot fake authentic. I wish families knew that more, that when you go and see schools, you can write more effectively on individual supplements about why you think this is a good fit for you, not telling them what they want to hear, but telling them authentically from you why you think this is a good fit. And when you've done enough work and enough of research and enough exploring and trying things on and getting clarity on what is really going to be a great educational fit for you, that will come across in the application of why you're going to study, why you want to study something, or why you think this campus is a great place for you to thrive. So doing that work is really important, and it leads to an authentic application. And one of the best things when kids go and see a school that they don't like, it's almost more indicative. It helps me more to know what they don't like, because that's almost clearer to them, why they didn't like something. So putting that time in on the search really does lead to more authentic applications. Number 10, I wish families knew how stressful the waiting period can be from application to decision. You send everything out, and while you're actually doing that work, you have something to tangibly do, getting the Common App filled out and the letters rec done and the score sent, and you actually have things to do. Once that goes out, I find for students, it can be a little bit of a relief, like, okay, it's off in cyberspace, and I'm gonna just have to wait. I find for parents, it's more stressful. They're impatient. They want to know, how's this gonna shake out? Where are they gonna go? Am I buying a plane ticket in August? Am I packing the car? Where are my costs gonna land? I find it very more stressful for parents than students in some ways, especially when I have people that, not that I've worked with so much professionally, but like people that I know personally, just I find it is a hard stretch for parents. And knowing that, in 6 to 8 months, your child, I guess 6 to 10 months, your child is leaving. It's hard. It's a hard period. Number 11, there is no Ferris wheel here. There is no fair. Like, this is not fair. And if you're looking for fair, this isn't it. There's no Ferris wheel. There's no cotton candy. And as these decisions start to shake out, it will not be fair. It will not make sense. You will have your child potentially denied at a school, but then admitted at a more selective school. You're like, but wait, why didn't that school that's less selective take them when this school did? Or you'll see a student that you just know is top of the game and they didn't get in, or you see another student that didn't seem like such a student that did get in somewhere. It doesn't make sense. It is not going to make sense. And so don't look for fair. It's not going to be fair. Um, the last thing that I wish families knew. As you go down this road, you can get really caught up in little details and how, getting everything out. And we're only human. We can lose sight of the fact that your child, if you are watching this, is probably in the United States of America and they are going to college. And to quote Ted Fisk, who wrote the Fisk Guide, and still, he's like in his 80s and still writes the Fisk Guide. Our higher education system in this country is just a jewel, and there is every type of college available for every type of student, and it's just a question of doing the research. If you're in this country and you're watching this, your child's probably going to college, and that in itself is just a wonderful thing. So to not lose sight of some of the granular, to let go of some of the granular stuff and just look at the more bird's eye view and say, you probably have a wonderful child and they are going to go to college. So that's all I've got for this month. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving, and I will post my books maybe another week or so before Christmas. And I will get this up on YouTube, and my website should be available hopefully in the next couple days.